7th rank, so it's really about the piece activity. Meanwhile, for Hikaru, that knight from d2 is about to jump to e4 and further into the position closer to the black pawns, creating threats. So it just feels like Arjun's too late to get those miners into the game, to get the pawns rolling up.
Yeah, and this is, again, one area of Arjun Erigaisi's chess that he might be working on in the near future. He doesn't like defending these technical endgames. It's not just that. Of course, he's starting on the back foot here quite heavily. It's an uphill struggle, mainly because of the black knight. The black knight, if it could be improved, the black rook, if it were more active, maybe there are some drawing chances. He does try to activate that rook. We'll see the white knight threaten black's bishop now and defended by its king. Judgment call. Is he going to take that bishop off the board, Tanya?
Very tempting to do it, but I think he's going to wait. I like the position of the knight also because it can jump to the left side and attack that pawn on b7. The computer doesn't love it, but it also looked like the kind of move that you want to make, provoking some weaknesses, eventually trying to target the a7 pawn as well, with one of the rooks sliding over to the a line.
And it's a provocative move here if black...
This company is going viral for its new process that gives you permanent teeth in just 24 hours.
The white knight will happily retreat and then look at the black piece in the corner. It will be a block of dead wood there. And instead, in the end, he decides to attack the white knight. At least he's getting active, Arjun. He's given one of the pawns back, so now white does have a concrete material advantage, but at least there is some pressure. I do like this last decision, at least, from Arjun.
He had to do it. He has to try to create some activity from his pieces. The knights do come out. It might be time for Hikaru to improve the position of his own rooks, get them into the game to make the most of the material advantage.
We're all taking a look at when the rook was going to come into the 7th. That hasn't really happened yet. But with the rook to d1 here, it's beginning to look like we're threatening potential for a knight to jump in, for example, trade off a pair of minor pieces and then get in behind. Now's not quite the right time, of course, because the bishop's defending the pawn on e7. But at some opportune moment, that's got to be what Hikaru's thinking. Pushing the a-pawn forward now, thinking about getting into the endgame. And Hikaru now choosing to go in, not to the 7th, but to the back rank.
And it comes with a threat, right? Rook b8, pinning that black knight is the big idea. That square had to be defended. Arjun does it, but Hikaru knows that he should be pushing for the edge, and I think that head shake is more of maybe that small frustration that he allowed this piece activity of Arjun's.
Exactly, that black knight got out. It cost Arjun a pawn, but it's a very worthwhile investment there. And the black bishop does look like it controls a lot of squares, maybe regretting the opportunity, kind of not taking the opportunity earlier to trade white's knight for that black bishop.
The bishop on, the knight rather, on c5 is the only defender of the pawn on b3 right now. So bishop d6 looks like such a natural move for black to play as well. So the plan for Arjun Erigaisi looks relatively straightforward to follow. The computer not liking the rook going to e8 though.
Yeah, that was the only piece caging the black knight. The black knight was actually trapped. It didn't have any squares to use. Now it can enter the center. Another idea, kicking away the white knight from the defense of b3. You just mentioned there, John, also available if the black bishop slides back to d6. Can come forward to d4 as well. Does feel like Hikaru is just losing the thread a bit. He's been playing quite quickly up until this last turn, spending 30 seconds there. I do feel that he wants to play a bit on the clock.
So is the idea then that the knight comes to d5 to accomplish the same thing instead, and if white moves the rook back to d8 to attack the knight, then you play bishop d6, and now your knight's out of the corner.
Exactly. It feels like this is the key move that we're showing on the board, getting the black knight in. Okay, the bar slightly rises after Arjun's move instead. Maybe a small missed opportunity, but still in the balance here. Arjun probably should be holding this endgame a majority of the time, but the clock is going to play such a huge role. How many times have we seen Hikaru Nakamura grind his opponents down in a long endgame with a bit of a helping hand from the time?
And when it comes down to those last few seconds, that's going to be incredibly tough for Arjun. Arjun's a super fast player, and he's usually the one who's ahead on the clock. But when it comes to time scrambles, I think Hikaru Nakamura is a clear, big favorite in this one. He's not as good because he's just not as used to handling time pressure. Arjun Erigaisi, you just don't see him coming down to those final few seconds. We saw that, how it worked against Ali Reza, to absolute disaster for Arjun. So at all costs, he has to keep those extra minutes on the clock to be able to defend this. Hikaru not happy with his position.
He's been shaking his head for the last 30 seconds. Very clearly here. Not happy with what's just happened. The white knight doesn't have many safe squares. If you retreat that white knight either to c3 or d2, you might just get pinned by the black rook. If you step your king forward, poke its face forward, then you'll get checked back. you might have to defend that knight with your pawn. We'll see a check here from Arjun Erigaisi, and the white king will be forced back. Hikaru still in the driver's seat, but the clock now suddenly not in his favor anymore.
Is the idea maybe to zigzag the king via e2 to d3, and the knight on e4 just about holds this together? I mean, it's looking a little bit ropey, but I think, does it even hold? I'm not even sure.
I think that's the plan. But, Arjun wondering whether to even push the white king back yet, maybe looking for something else. The one thing you don't want to allow is the two white rooks to get into the 8th rank. There might be some checkmating ideas behind the black army, but Arjun does centralize beautiful pieces for Arjun, but now pinned by the white rook.
And with the speed with which Hikaru responded, it was almost like he was expecting this move on the board. It did come with a trap of its own. The knight on e4 could in some positions be picked up, and some forking ideas on f6. Hikaru just continuously looking unhappy with the choices that he's making, but he still holds the advantage. He's still doing pretty well on the clock as well as the board.
Quite calm, Hikaru, the heart rate down under 90. It hasn't always been that way, especially yesterday, but even in the match so far today. And the quick moves coming, the 40-second time difference. Arjun has to speed up. We've all been there, we've all been checkmated by Hikaru, lost games due to the clock. He cannot allow himself to get under the 1 minute mark.
The clock has not been a huge factor in this matchup just yet. Through the middle game, both players here, both contenders, have done a reasonably good job of maintaining their time management. But as we go on and on, as we get further and further in this game, small differences start to mean a lot. 2 minutes 30 plays 1 minute 50. Hikaru Nakamura, arguably the faster player with more time. In another minute or so, this will start becoming critical.
Well, if you're Hikaru right now, you also want to try to get some trades into the position. I think he wants to make that possible. If you can get the rooks off the board, you should be winning on the spot. But that isn't the case right now. He does fall back with the rook, defending that bishop on b6. How is Hikaru going to make progress? And will 2 minutes be enough to convert his advantage into a full point?
You can see the focus now. Hikaru switching modes, switching up the pace. He's just playing useful moves. Okay, bit of a scratch there under the headphones. He's just trying to get into the flow state, into the zone. And the Team Falcons player tries to turn this endgame in his favor. Not easy to find moves for Arjun. He just has to hope and sit there. Oh, and sometimes it's better not to do anything. He's pushed a pawn forward. That's only weakened the black king. His pawn structure now, those pawns won't move backwards. Those pawns vulnerable.
Just sitting is not Arjun's one of Arjun's strengths. He's a player who always wants to do something on the board. You know, most times it works to his favor, but sometimes it backfires, like when you have to end up creating weaknesses for yourself. Arjun now tries to bring the king to the defense, but that trade of knights could have only favored Hikaru. He's up material, any trade favors white.
Yeah, especially the rooks coming off the board. Some scenarios, if the black pawns were further back, you could trade off rooks, especially if the queen side is liquidated in the meantime. Black's bishop very, very passive. 1 minute plays 1 minute 45, though. That is the key factor in this position.
Pieces now continuing to move a little bit faster now. We're feeling the sense of urgency. Hikaru Nakamura forcing Arjun Erigaisi under a minute now. And even though it looks like white is a bit stronger on the board, anything can happen in a time scramble. Here we go.
But this is all turned around. Arjun's about to win a pawn on h5, and that's a big pawn to win. You know, you move your king back, the h-pawn starts moving forward. You can imagine the 4 versus 2 on that right flank will give you something to play for, counterplay to play for, which is why Hikaru boxes up the black king. Now a check on h1 would be game over. Rook c1, rook h1, watch out, Arjun.
Well, he trades off rooks in desperation. Arjun Erigaisi here. Maybe it's an inspired decision, but look at this. He's dropping one of the pawns he just picked up. Given a question mark from Hikaru, but I think the most natural move in the position. Now it's 3 versus 4 in terms of pawns. Black king very, very active. Can Hikaru maneuver his rook to win black's pawn on the queen side? That is the key to the position.
Arjun scared off those checkmating ideas, gets the rooks off the board, but turns out that is a bad decision right now. He needs to defend. That bishop just stopped, paralyzed from getting active. And for Hikaru, the good news is the b3 pawn cannot be targeted by that bishop. Arjun attacks, he's activated it. Now the bishop will defend it from b4.
Black king is actually cut off on the edge of the board as well. He went the wrong direction. Hikaru tries to open up a path for the white king. It's all about the clock, though. And there we go. Hikaru might have clinched it with this last move. There's a big weakness on the f5 square. That black pawn is doomed, potentially. He just needs to move his king here, waste a move, Hikaru, and the black bishop is stuck. whichever direction you go, you're going to lose a pawn. The black king coming. 15 seconds though, it's just physically impossible for Arjun to make the rest of these moves. You can't even pre-move because the white rook is going to hunt down that black bishop.
10 seconds, he loses the pawn, and Arjun Erigaisi resigns. Hikaru Nakamura with the fist bump takes the lead.
Hikaru Nakamura, he was a point down in this third place match, managing to win a second game now to go 2.5, 1.5 up. Team Falcons now have the upper hand in this third place match over Gen G, putting Arjun Erigaisi in a high pressure situation. Nakamura now just 1 point away from taking it.